Da-da, da-da. I'll spare you the rest of this tune. Welcome, fellow primates. I hope this video finds you well. As you can hear, as you can see, I'm finally getting a bit excited about the upcoming holiday season. I'm not the kind of guy who already gets very excited in October when some shopkeepers think it's a good idea to put up Christmas decorations. As far as I'm concerned, nothing in this life is worth 3 months of foreplay. But now, only 2 weeks before Christmas and 1 week before I myself start my Christmas holidays, my thoughts are turning towards buying a Christmas tree and putting up decorations and thinking about all the nice food that I want to prepare for myself and my friends, and the cozy evenings curled up with a book with candlelight and a Christmas tree on. And of course, my mind turns to sex. Yes, because as a biologist, it is extraordinary that we are about to celebrate an incredibly rare reproductive act, the virgin birth of a primate. Biologists call this phenomenon parthenogenesis, which literally means virgin origin or virgin creation. And in fact, it is so rare that in the past 2000 years, I had to consult an issue of birth defects research, which I assure you is not breakfast table reading, to find what we have achieved so far. And as you can see in this picture, it isn't too pretty. What is this? Well, this is a little homunculus, which is technically known as a parthenogenetic fetiform teratoma. And that is basically a most often benign ovarian tumor. This one was taken from the ovaries of a 25-year-old Japanese woman. It could be safely removed, so the patient could continue to live happily ever after. But if you look at this creature, this is the result of an oocyte sitting in the ovary thinking, fuck it, I'm not going to wait for a sperm cell any longer. I'm just going to start the developmental program myself. So there. So it creates this parthenogenetic, unfertilized, developed creature, which looks like a sort of little alien type fetus. But it's extraordinary. These fetiform teratomas are characterized by having differentiated tissues from all three germ layers, the endoderm, the ectoderm, and the mesoderm. And this creature has a skeleton, it has a brain, it has an eye on its forehead, it has a spinal cord, it has bones, it's got little limbs, little arms, little legs. It's got a lot. Of course, it isn't a fetus. This is not a new messiah. But of course, that's not surprising, because primates suck at parthenogenesis. We should really leave that to creatures like aphids and some species of lizards. In fact, there's quite a host of different animal species that can reproduce parthenogenetically, but humans and primates generally are not among them. If we want to make beautiful babies, well, we need to have sex. And in biology, wanting to have sex means that you have to enter a dangerous arena, the arena of courtship and mating. There are few arenas in biology that are as full of treachery and manipulation and conflict and sometimes even coercion as the reproductive arena. Just check your newspaper. So if you see in this picture, this is a mantis, praying mantis. This is Myomantis cafra. This is a South African species known as the springbok mantis, and its reproductive arena is one of the most dangerous ones imaginable. When the males and the females get together to mate, most often it turns into a bloodbath. In more than 60% of the cases, the males, which are smaller than the females, approach her. She overpowers him and cannibalizes him. In the less than 40% of the cases in which he gets the upper hand, he may be able to safely mate with her if he afterwards sprints off quickly enough. If a human male would be in that same situation, I don't think we would judge him for throwing the towel in the ring and resorting to perhaps a little bit of autoerotic exploits. But not so with mantises. They are driven by a suicidal sexual urge, and they combine this with what can only be called an insectile intelligence. I feel really bad for these chaps, because if they only knew their females can actually, if they so choose, reproduce parthenogenetically. So if they were as smart as a human, they would realize they wouldn't have to go through this very dangerous ritual. Now, since in arthropods in particular, there is this size difference often between females being larger and the weaker sex, in this case males being smaller. Mating can be, especially in predatory species, be quite a dangerous business, and therefore it's not weird to think that in species where the sexes are equipped with weapons, like these mantises, certain mechanisms have evolved to take the tension out of courtship and mating, or to at least stack the deck against being eaten if you are a male. And this is how we get to the first paper I want to highlight today, which was published in the journal Arachnology earlier this year. It was led by a graduate student, Laura Olguin Perez, and it is titled Evidence of Piercing and Sexual Differences in Venom Composition in a Sexual Stinging Scorpion. Now, scorpions, of course, I don't have to explain to you, both the males and the females have a powerful venom, a weapon that they can use for predation and defense. And of course, if they don't want to end up as a meal for the other during courtship, then they have to be very careful. It has to be ritualized. And in fact, that's how scorpions do it. So scorpion male, often smaller or less robust than the female, would approach her. And then they initiate a ritual that includes what is called a promenade à deux, a little dance for two, in which the males and the females grab each other by the claws, by the pedipalps, and do a little dance backwards and forwards until the male finds a place where he can deposit his spermatophore, and then he keeps dancing with the female until he positions her genital opening over the spermatophore so she can take it up, and when that happens, they can disengage and he can run. Now, this is a dangerous business because, like spiders, like praying mantises, scorpions are not above cannibalizing each other. But in this species they study here, a Mexican species of scorpion called Megacormus gurchi, the males have evolved a technique that people think perhaps helps them survive these dangerous courtship rituals better, and it's called sexual stinging. That means that during the promenade à deux, in which the male and the female moving back and forward, the male inserts his stinger into the female, and it is thought that he will inject a bit of venom to acquiesce the female, to at least make sure that she doesn't attack, kill, and eat him. And you can see in this little photo here in panel D, you can see the two scorpions engaged in their mating dance, with the male on the left inserting his stinger into the membrane between two segments of the pedipalps of the female. The weird shaped thing in panel E is the spermatophore. Now, what this very cool paper showed is that, and you can see that in this photograph here, if you look at the intersegmental membrane of the pedipalps of females that have gone through the promenade à deux and have been stung by the male, there are these blackened lesions, and these are melanized scars, and they are visible evidence that indeed during courtship the females were stung by the male. Now, this much was already known in the literature. This phenomenon of sexual stinging has been seen in at least 20 species of scorpions, distributed in 6 families across the 60 known families of scorpions, but it was never known whether the males in doing so actually inject venom or not, or whether perhaps the stinging was just a mechanical stimulus that triggered some behavioral change in the female. And what these scientists did, other than showing that the females and the males have different venom composition, they showed that the males not only sting the females mechanically, they actually inject venom into the female. And you can see that in this graph. This is a graph of the composition of the liquid that circulates in the body of the female, called hemolymph. And you can see in the peak in the middle, these components come from the male venom. They are not components of the hemolymph of the female. And so these authors, for the first time ever, show that scorpions during sexual stinging actually inject venom. Now, that is cool, but it is actually cooler than that. Not only is this the first time that it's documented that a male venomous creature injects a female venomous creature with venom in scorpions, it's the first time this has been shown in any venomous animal whatsoever. So for venom science, this is really quite an exciting finding. Venom gets used in the courtship and mating arena, but it's often only between males. Duck-billed platypus males fight each other for females, use venom. Slow lorises fight each other and use venom for that. often the males for access to females. There's a group of crustaceans called amphipods, especially skeleton shrimp, and they have males that fight each other and seem to inject venom into each other in the pursuit of females. But actually, during courtship, a male injecting venom into a female to perform some function during mating, that's only known now for the first time to really occur in scorpions. And that is really cool. Now, the authors speculate and discuss, what is it for? Is the injected venom some sort of tranquilizer? Does it make the female quiet? We don't know, because when the male does its little dance with the female and it puts its stinger in her, she doesn't look defensive. She's quiet. She keeps her stinger flat. She doesn't try to escape from him. There doesn't seem to be any coercion going on. So the authors speculate that perhaps the venom injected into the female, because we know that many venoms, including those of scorpions, contain peptides that have antibacterial, antimicrobial activities, that perhaps the injected venom gives her an immune shot. It's like a vaccination that makes her stronger as he starts brooding the embryos. We don't know. Further research needs to be done. But then in the paper that was published at some point last year, we can see that in another group of venomous animals, where the females are bigger than the males generally, there is evidence that mating involves coercion, and in this case, the male coercing the female. And this is a paper in the journal Animal Behavior. It is titled Biting and Binding, an exclusive coercive mating strategy of males in a philodromid spider. It's led by a postdoc called Lenka Sintenska, and it is really, I like this paper. It's really well written. It's really interesting. It has sophisticated testing of hypotheses. And they looked at a species of spider called Thanatos fabricii. And this is a creature in a group that are called the false widow spiders. And what these do is they encounter each other in the mating arena. In 11% of the cases, based upon their experiments, the female kills the male and eats him. However, in the other cases, the male wins. And this video, if you look at this video, you can see what happens. So this is a male being introduced into the container with a female. There's a quick race. Then the male, which is the smaller spider, bites the female on the leg and drags her into a corner. He on average bites her 2 times. Sometimes the bites can last almost as long as 2 minutes. As you can see here, he's holding on to one of her legs. She's completely immobilized. And then he spins a little bit of silk around her before he starts to, and that's where we stop it, before he starts to insert his pedipalps into her and transfer sperm. So what you see here is a male attacking a female, biting her, causing immobilization. Then he puts a few strands of silk around her. He mates with her. And then when he's done, he runs off. And then at some point, the immobilized female becomes mobile again. She takes the silken thread off her. And it's thought that perhaps the silk helps give the male a little bit of a head start so he can escape more easily. Now, long story short, it looks to all intents and purposes that coercive mating really is happening here. Male attacks the female, female tries to escape. Male bites the female. Female gets wounds, gets actual damage done to her, and then when she recovers from the immobilizing bite, the experiments that they did actually show that she's less able for a while to catch prey as well. So there may be a functional disadvantage for her immediately after mating. So a really cool study of another venomous group of animals in which venom probably plays a role in coercive mating. I say probably because they didn't study and can't tell if venom was actually injected. Now, it seems to be a reasonable assumption that it was. The male bites the female for quite a long time, as I said, for up to almost 2 minutes. So it is possible, I would say probable, that venom is involved in immobilizing the female so the male can safely inseminate her. Now, when venom is used in the reproductive arena, it can also be done with less violence, without physical contact even. And if that sounds to you like the female way of doing things, you'd be right. If you look, for instance, in hymenopterans, wasps, ants, and bees, there are species of paper wasps in the genus Polistis, and this beautiful wasp here is a North American wasp. called Polistes fuscatus, where the females have a sex pheromone in the venom that makes boys crazy. So if you do experiments and you use venom gland extracts from these females, and of course in hymenopterans, the males don't have venom glands because the venom apparatus is modified in evolution from the egg-laying apparatus. If you crush the female venom glands and you release it in an environment where males are present, the males are very, very attracted to it. Not just attracted to it, they go into a sexual frenzy. And if you just put a bunch of males together, they engage in vigorous bouts of homosexual behavior. The remarkable thing is that if you use the crushed up venom glands of Polistes fuscatus, one of these species of paper wasps, they make not only the males of its own species crazy, but males of other species in the same genus or even different genera crazy with sexual lust. So that's interesting. And in a paper that was published, I think it was this year, or maybe previous year, it doesn't matter. Another team of researchers found that the venom compound N3-methylbutylacetamide, which is one of many compounds found in the venom of Polistes wasps and wasps of other genera, is enough by itself to attract males from different species. So you can see here that one single molecule can work as a very strong sex pheromone. It's actually incidentally the same compound that when it's found in wines, and people have done studies with expert wine tasters, if it's found in Pinot Noir in particular, the wine tasters don't like it very much because it seems to be associated with grapes that have become infected by fungi. So same molecule, it drives wasps crazy with sexual lust, but Pinot Noir drinkers don't like the taste or the smell of it. Now, the interspecies allure of venom isn't always harmless because Mother Nature sometimes plays tricks and she can turn the promise of sex into a fatal attraction. And there is no better example than another very cool paper that was published earlier this year by Joshua Torres and colleagues from the University of Utah and many other places. It was published in Science Advances entitled Small Molecule Mimicry Hunting Strategy in the Imperial Cone Snail Conus imperialis. Now what they did is a beautiful study, technically very sophisticated. They used a whole range of methods. They used organic chemistry, nuclear magnetic resonance, characterization of venom compounds of the cone snail. They used phylogenetics, they used transcriptomics, they used electrophysiology. They used a whole range of techniques to find out something which one cartoon from that paper summarizes. They discovered that the imperial cone snail, which are worm-hunting cone snails, seem to use pheromone mimics to catch their prey. Specifically, their venom contains mimics of pheromones used by polychaete worms, which is what they prey on, and these worms use it as mating pheromones. So as this cartoon shows, they produce a pheromone mimic that makes male polychaetes swim around and spawn all their sperm, and another pheromone mimic that makes female polychaetes start a nuptial dance and swim in tight little circles. So the authors hypothesized that as the cone snail searches for prey and their polychaete worm prey is hidden in crevices or tubes, if they get close enough and they release some of these sex pheromone or mating pheromone mimics, the males come out and start spawning and are thereby easier to catch, and the females come out to perform their mating dance, but instead of some action, they get eaten by this nasty snail. A beautiful, beautiful example of what is called aggressive mimicry, in which one creature makes chemical compounds that, although structurally different from the compounds used by the prey species, functionally they mimic them perfectly and they can entice these worms out. Now, this has not been tested in the wild. This is all, of course, experimental studies in the laboratory. So these authors say that further research needs to be done exactly how the deployment of these pheromone mimicking venom compounds can help them hunt worms. But it's a beautiful example of trickery in the reproductive arena with the use of venom. Now, we're getting quite close to the end. If this story actually, and this is not venom, sounds vaguely familiar, alluring, creatures for food by hijacking their communication channels. And check this picture out. This may remind you of a story you may know about the femme fatales in fireflies. And this was work done by the late, great Tom Eisner. He was probably one of the handful of most important chemical ecologists of the 20th century. And he and his colleagues discovered that there are two genera of fireflies that have a pretty bad interaction. You have the larger bodied photurus fireflies and the smaller bodied photinus fireflies. The photurus fireflies here illustrated in panel A, and the photinus firefly, the smaller one, in panel B. Fireflies use their little lights twinkling in the dark as communication signals to find a mate. Now, what happens is when the small male photinus is a horrible word to pronounce, firefly flies round, it sends its signals, then the larger photurus female responds in his code. He goes to her, but instead of finding a reproductive mate, he gets caught and eaten, as panels D and E show her. So you can see here that sexual signals can be used to lure food to your plate as well. Mother Nature can be quite devious. Now, what I've been talking about here, attractive smells, enticing lights, twinkling in the dark, intoxicating substances, coerced proximity. That sounds like Christmas to me, doesn't it? Before I say goodbye, I just wanted to, because this is the end of the year, highlight something important. The three papers that I highlight here, one by Joshua Torres and his colleagues on the snails, by Lenka Sentenska on the spiders, and by Laura Olguin Perez on the scorpions. These lead authors are all junior young scientists. One, Laura, I think is a graduate student, while Lenka and Joshua are postdocs. And I think it would be nice at the end of the year to highlight that what they do as junior scientists is so important. Without their passion, their intelligence, their sharp brains, their enthusiasm, we wouldn't get as much science done at all as we do now. And for myself, and I think I will speak for other senior scientists as well, it's a real privilege to collaborate with you younger, enthusiastic, smarter, driven people. So thank you so much, all of you, for doing all this great science. Your papers deserve to be read, and I hope that some of the viewers will read them and discuss them with colleagues. I think I've talked long enough. If you like this, like it under the video, subscribe and sign up for alerts. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.